And we got it.
Everybody else?
Hey, Juan, you got a core.
Thank you. Just fixing the microphone.
Maybe the microphone.
Yeah.
Right. Feeding to the other microphone.
Yeah. Okay. I think that might have fixed it. Yes.
Good, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, we have. Oh, you do? We did. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Clerk, are we good?
Yes, we can go.
Very good. We're going to call the meeting of the Business and Economic Development Task Force, City of Miami Springs, the Thursday, December 2nd, 2021 meeting to order. First task that we will have at hand is to do the roll call. Mr. Clerk, great to have you with us here this evening and filling in for Michael.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. We'll start with the roll call. Board Member Milam.
Here.
Board Member Finley is out. Finney is out. Board Member Camachi.
Here.
Board Member Len. Board Member Guerra.
Here.
Okay, hold on. I heard you, but let me turn it up and maybe see, because I don't think the room can hear you. Hold on. Can you repeat that, please?
Here.
Okay. So I got a feedback. Yeah, I'm trying to clear that up. I'm sorry for everybody on Zoom that's hearing the echo. I'm trying to fix that, but let me continue with the roll call for the moment. Board Member Fernandez is absent. Board Member Garcia. Board Member Pereira.
Here.
Board Member Troliard.
Here.
Board Member Carrillo.
Here.
And Chair Trowbridge.
Here.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, we have a quorum and we'll begin our meeting. The next items are up for review is item number 2, approval of minutes from our regular meeting of November 4th, 2021. We will entertain a motion. Would someone like to do that?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think I've received it.
All right.
I have a copy of the minutes if you need to view them and you want to take a moment to review them.
Sure.
All right, well, we'll table that for a moment. We'll recirculate those, make sure everybody has a copy and a chance to do that. We'll come back to item 2 without objection. Item number 3 is an update from council and city leadership. We have many of our leaders here with us, so I'll certainly open the floor if we want to hear from our mayor or members of the council, and certainly our city manager who is here. The floor is yours.
I'll stay until the end.
Very good.
Sure.
I would
Thank
like
you.
to.
Madam Mayor?
Comments. Mr. Chairman, it's on.
Make sure you have your mic on.
It's on there.
Thank you so much. And usually I abstain till the end of the meeting, but I just wanted to just make a few comments. First of all, I want to express our deepest appreciation for the time, the commitment that each member of the board is devoting to this task force. I know that each of you are extremely busy. There's a lot to cover, and your input, every single meeting that I've sat here, I've learned so much just by listening to the conversations, the comments, the observations that are made. Your input is greatly valued, and thank you again. And I wanted to give you an update briefly, because I know you have a lot to do, on just some of the things that have come up in past few meetings. I know that you're going to prepare a report for us at the end of your year, but there are things that we've been hearing that we could do now. You know, there's no reason for us to wait. So I wanted to give you an idea of some of those things. First of all, with the code, updating our codes, as you know, that's a huge task for an almost 100-year-old city. A lot of our codes are in great need of revision, and it's something that we've never really tackled until recently. This past summer, the city council voted to actually allocate funds, because that's the issue, is we kept kicking the can further down the road, because there's a lot of funding required to update our codes, and we're going to do it piecemeal, take sections of the code, but this is the first start, and we're going to be doing our sign codes first. The other issue is, it came up, I think, at the first or second meeting, that we are not welcoming new businesses. It's a fantastic idea, something we hadn't done before. So I've written a letter, and you have a copy of it here, that's being sent out to retroactively as of October to all new businesses. When someone applies for a business license here in Miami Springs, they will get this letter from me welcoming to the city, and attached to it is the contact information for all of our city council members and our department heads. And as we get more information from you, obviously this is a dynamic letter, we can adjust it, I'll adjust it, update it, add any recommendations that you think we should add. The other thing is, we talked about the some of the buildings on Westward Drive, and that the owners are not keeping them up to the standard that they should be. And since that time, I know Mr. Milam kindly asked me to walk with him, and he pointed out some things to me that were pretty surprising. After that, I also walked with our city manager and our public works director, and we addressed some of these issues, plus many others. I've walked on my own and identified a lot of things that there's no reason to wait for a report on this. There are things that we can do now, that we can ask our business owners and building owners, because in some cases it's the business owner that's responsible for maintaining the front of the property, tidy. And some cases it's actually the business owner, the building owner, that will have to do the work. But I'm reaching out to each of those business owners where we found deficiencies personally, to ask them to invite them to meet with me in front of their building, and let's talk about how we can improve some of the unsightly areas. Plus, in front of you, you have a copy of what the city sent out, a flyer to all the businesses, asking them to be good neighbors, things that they should be doing, and keeping the area in front of their business tidy and nice and attractive. And that's a daily chore that needs to be done. But on the other end of that, after we're asking them to do this, we're going to start enforcing this. We've been pretty lax in tolerating a lot of unsightly areas. We have codes in the city, and they need to be uniformly enforced. And if we enforce them with some businesses, we need to enforce them with others. And we're going to step up to the plate on that and make a much better effort in being consistent with that and being diligent with that, so that the city really is beautiful Miami Springs. The last item I wanted to mention is the parking. We've heard it loud and clear. I think we've dealt with the parking the past 3 meetings. We get it. We understand parking is an issue, and we've got to do something to improve the parking. The things that we can do immediately right now, we're in the process of doing. We're improving our public works department is ordering new parking signs, and they're going to be directional signs. We're going to very clearly label where the public parking is, and not have people try to guess, can I park here? I don't know, I can't park there, but can I park here? I'm not sure if my car will be towed away. We're going to make these public parking areas nicer, more attractive too. Keep them clean, clearly labeled, clear directional signs on how to get to them. And those are things that we can do now. We're also looking at, I know at one of the last meeting, the issue was raised of employees and business owners are having to use up parking spaces in front of their businesses that could be available for their clients. So we are working with looking into leasing some additional spaces about a block away from Westward Drive that business owners can themselves park there, and they can direct their employees to park, so they're not taking up valuable space in front or near their businesses. This will free up a good number of spaces. I'm anticipating probably 25 easily spaces, and maybe more near Westward Drive. So those are all things we can do right now. Obviously, the long-term issues are And we hear it loud and clear. We got the message. We need more parking. And we're going to be looking at that. That's not fairly within your purview or your ability to resolve. It's something that the council is going to have to do. We're going to have some workshops on it and look at the complexities of parking and figure out a solution. There's some earlier studies that were done. It would be irresponsible of us to take those earlier studies 10 years ago and dust them off and say we're implementing them now. It's unrealistic. Obviously, things have changed and we have to look at the situation now. But I promise you that we will be having some parking workshops and we will look at the issue of making sure that the parking concerns are mitigated as much as possible. So with that, I think that's pretty much a summary. William, did I miss anything? I know we had talked about a few things that we were doing for the city. And again, thank you so much, all of you, for your service here. I'm going to sit quietly and just listen. There's a lot to learn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Councilman.
Chairman, members of the task force. Sorry I've missed a couple of meetings, but I keep getting all the information and good work. And I'm not here necessarily to add more to it, but I do have an idea. I would have waited till the end, but I've got to be somewhere at 7:30. And I saw on the agenda for tonight, the surveying of business owners, which I think is a terrific idea. And I thought maybe at some point, and with the city's help and everyone else here in the city, we might be able to survey residents about their purchasing practices and what kinds of businesses, in addition to the ones that already exist, would residents like to see? And do they do their purchases more during the day? Is it lunchtime? Is it evening? Because I know the mayor just mentioned parking. There are certain times of the day where it's more challenging for parking, but at this hour, it's not as challenging, right? So just a couple of thoughts, not to add more to your plate, but just to provide a broader context for surveying and getting input. And again, thank you all very, very much. And I want to wish you and your families a happy holiday, happy, safe season, and good luck with the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
Well, okay.
All right, very good. So we're going to go back to the minutes and folks had a chance to take a look at that. We have a motion on the table or to proffer to put on the table to approve the minutes.
I motion to approve that.
Thank you, sir. Is there a
I
second?
second.
We have a second and a third. Any other comments or thoughts or updates or corrections? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay? Minutes passed on November 4th.
Thank you.
So now we'll go to public comment, and I know that we don't have a sign-up sheet, but if you'd like to make some public comment, we're asking folks to limit that to about 2 minutes. You're welcome to come to the microphone. Public comment is now open. Welcome. Please just tell us your name, and if you have a business here, state your business and where you're located.
Sure. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jennifer Graham. I am the president of the Miami Springs Historical Society and Museum. We have brought forward a beautiful new museum at 501 East Drive. It has taken quite a bit of time and collaboration as well. We're very appreciative of the town council and all of the team members who played a role, including Charlie and others in our success and our residents and community. We are in the Stafford Park. If you're not familiar with Stafford Park, I'm not familiar with all of you, I'm sorry, but we haven't seen the building. It is fresh, it is innovative, it preserves the story of our town, and as well, continues to tell the story of who we are and who we can be. We strive to promote innovation based on the facts and the story here from Miami Springs birth and inception through the history of Glenn Curtis. There's an incredible story in our town, as you know, with our military history as a result of Glenn Curtis's actions, our entertainment history, from whether it's been music, whether it's been sports, let's just say the early sports before golf and then golf, etc. As well as some of the incredible things we've done in food. And I've seen Mr. Minor. I love your store. You're welcome. But we have a very rich and deep history that we can draw upon. And I was speaking with Patrick and some of my friends here, and I believe that we have a real story of innovation. And I encourage our council here, our little task force, to take on that role and look for ways that we can leverage technology and innovation in driving the businesses that could come here and do business. I see that as a huge gap, frankly. We don't maybe have enough technology, software, and other types of businesses that could be here, maybe not draw so much hardship on parking, although I have an idea for that I can share with you. I'm not originally from Miami Springs. I grew up in the Northeast. I have seen towns go through renovations very similar to this, and I'm encouraged that we have the right team and task force here to drive the growth necessary to be successful and continue to thrive. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing, and I welcome you to all join the Historical Society. You don't need to live here. Please donate, buy a tile, come and see our exhibits. We are an all-volunteer organization. No one pays me a dime to do the work that I've done here with my team and committee, and all the people that have come before me in honoring the legend of Miami Springs. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Grant.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
My name is Jeff Donovitz. I'm the owner and operator of Burrito Restaurant. And I was asked to come and just, add a little, just some input on the parking situation. Depending on how you look at it, I'm okay with progress building. I'm not, I had to move my restaurant because this place is being built now, which, I wasn't that happy about, but it worked out okay for me. In the transition part of while they're building, I know it's very difficult to have any kind of system in place because things are shifting and moving all the time. There's like 50 guys working there right now, and they all have they need somewhere to park in the morning. My wife's chased them out of the parking lot about 10 times already. That's something I know would be really hard for you to deal with. All I'm concerned with is possibly the front of my restaurant on the circle. Some signage, some limits, time limits on how long you can park. Maybe spots for takeout only for my restaurant and Paco's Way. Anything, whatever, anything you can do. But right now, people have nowhere else to park, so they park there sometimes, and then they go to work, and their car sits there all day. Some of my customers complain to me. I know I don't think I've lost a lot of business, but a few people just they'll drive around a little bit for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, can't find a spot, so they'll go somewhere else. I know, like everyone has said before, you guys have a full plate. I'm not asking you to run over there, and I know yesterday I saw 2 officers on the circle, and I thought I had to chuckle because when the babysitter leaves, the kids go back and do whatever they're gonna do before. As long as the officers are there, people will not go into that box. They won't block you know what I mean? So you can't really have anyone patrol it, I know, because as soon as they leave, people park there anyway. No. But all I would ask of you is that if there's any way we can regulate some kind of parking out on the circle. It remains to be seen what's going to happen when the building's done. I don't know what the parking situation is, but we're losing almost everything in the back. I know, because the property line goes way across the parking lot, which I found out today goes even farther than I thought. So I guess if there's any, I don't know what kind of forum I would need to, or to address this, but I appreciate if you guys maybe could talk about it or try to come up with something. Something to help our business, and not just mine, but everyone on the circle. So I appreciate your time. I have 2 rookies on the floor, and someone called out, so I don't have much time either. I have to get back to work. I just wanted to state that my case, and thanks for listening.
Good job.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Jeff, I reach out.
We love your restaurant. We love that you came tonight, and thanks for the good work that you do.
I reach out to you.
Yes, that's who reached out to me. Just it wasn't a secret. Yeah, I just wanted to put it in your ear, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Keep up the great work. Other folks for public comment? Yes, sir. Give us your name and
I'm Mark Nestor Soares, and I operate MiamiSprings.com. So first, I want to thank everyone here. The effort that you guys put in, the sacrifice, to take time away from family and your businesses to be here is significant. So we really appreciate the effort that you guys are putting here. I'd like to thank Captain Pereira, had called me, invited me to come in, and so I really appreciate that. Mark, what you're doing with the chamber of in the Gables is amazing, and you've been doing a great job here. I've been listening to these meetings, and you've been doing a really amazing job. I also want to highlight the no nonsense from Max Milam. Get something done, and that's what you guys, as opposed to all these plans have been sitting around for years. Finally, get something done, and I think that's what needs to happen out of this. Is when the report comes out of this body and goes to council, something to quote you, get something done out of it. Parking, first thing I wanted to discuss. Westward, I think, and maybe I'm speaking out of line here, but I think the majority of the task force is probably favor moving forward with one lane westward in each direction. The plans have been sitting around here for years. I've heard them for a long time. And I fully support one lane in each direction on westward with one specific plan. There were a couple of different versions of this. The plan that I think makes the most sense, that gives us the greatest benefit, is taking the internal lane and the closest to the median lane, and using that for angle parking, which is one of the plans I recommended. Keeping all the trees in that median, keeping that kind of like sidewalk in between to allow people with the parking on either side to work their way to the edges and be able to cross either way. Gives you great benefit in terms of that central parking there, increases the number of parking spots, then allows you to take the curbside parking and pull the sidewalk out towards West Virginia. You have just that one, that let's say what would be the right lane today would be the single lane. Expand the sidewalk and allow you to beautify, so not only increase the sidewalk, but now add additional trees. So you keep, let's say, the trees in the center, and now add trees on the outside, and you turn that westward corridor on look, westward's beautiful in terms of the trees. Now imagine trees on both sides, making it really a beautiful, a wider sidewalk. Let's say your business, now and much more sidewalk seating for a sidewalk cafe, just I think would be a beautiful thing for our city. Another thing, and I kind of discussed this a little bit with Captain Pereira, the first block of Curtis Parkway, heading southbound. In other words, south of the circle. All right, so let's say you're coming from Hialeah, coming around circle, and then getting onto Curtis. Not the people coming from 3652 Curtis, but the opposite direction. We do not need 2 lanes on Curtis going southbound, especially in that first block. In fact, 2 lanes is dangerous. I can't tell you how many accidents have happened on the circle where you're on that right lane and someone in that next lane wants to cut in over. In fact, some of the designs today are bad in terms of dash lines pointing to that internal lane, which is a problem today. What I would suggest is something that I haven't seen come up before, is turning the right lane, turn that into angle parking, and put 1 lane in that first block of Curtis. And I know this is a county road and require planning approval, but using that would increase parking right there in Curtis, so it's easier for cars to move, and you don't eat up anything in the median. A lot of people are afraid of taking green space and turning it into parking lot. You would be able to keep that green space. You're basically turning a road into additional parking, and frankly, slowing down that traffic coming through into Curtis. I'll try to be quick as I know time's limited. Gateway Overlay District. I think it's a missed opportunity in terms of being able to see those resident apartments there. Man, he mentioned they were office space. Imagine people Monday through Friday working with jobs who come down and shop at all the stores and up at your business. So the Gateway Overlay District could still be modified because we still have properties that are for sale and new plans that could be coming up in the future across the street on Hook Square to encourage more office/retail developments where the second and third floor are more office space and less residential. So anything that you guys can do to influence that, I think would be beneficial in terms of pro-business and improving that walkability. I mean, you're in the Gables and myself included during the day, and people, to the office. You're going to just down the street to get something to eat. If we had more offices, your business offices in Miami Springs, I think it would be a more vibrant downtown. That's it in terms of Gateway Overlay District. Circle redesign. I know a lot of us believe in changing the design on Westward. And I think you'll have more success politically. A lot of folks are complaining about the circle. There's issues with the circle. I'm not gonna beat you guys up in terms of all the different things, but the circle is still not pedestrian friendly in the places that people use it the most. If you're coming from Starbucks and Burritoville to get to the circle, I see more people jaywalking through there. I stopped one time for the light where there is a pedestrian path, once. And I stopped there dozens of times for people jaywalking and crossing over on the other side. In other words, the pedestrian path is in the wrong place. And there is no pedestrian path going from the gas station over to Race Taekwondo. Not a single one. There's a little indentation there, but there's not one safe pedestrian path there. So if we want to make pedestrian friendly and get the confidence of the city, I think there's some improvements that need to be done, and maybe those improvements could be done at the same time as changes to Westward and possibly First Parkway. Final thought, I do run MiamiSprings.com, and just as a kind of pro-business thing, we offer for free every business in the city of Miami Springs the ability to list your business online. You get over 20,000 visits a month, so a little shameless plug there, but it is a free service that we do offer to all the local businesses. On that note, again, I want to thank everyone here and thank you for your time and appreciate the service that you're providing to the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz.
Any other public comment? Yes, sir. Welcome back.
George Santine, longtime resident of Miami Springs. Also, I'm gonna say the owner because my wife is the owner.
She's not here, correct?
Yeah, and the one-man show is twice as sweet. But in her behalf, I also have a lot of interest in this downtown and this task force being successful. I think Mayor Mitchell mentioned it, that they're going to do the best to try to get to the community and tell the building owners and business owners to do something about their storefront. But I think we, at the end of the day, it's probably going to have to be something code. If you want, we got to stop saying that we're a charming and quaint little town that everybody knows its name, and really show it, because that's the easiest thing. We are a small town and everybody does know a name, but it's not quaint and it's not charming. But what you've seen outside, you can just go on the internet and look at charming small towns. They don't look nothing like Miami Springs. They look charming and quaint. And it comes with the aesthetics of the buildings, something uniform, and that's what we need. So aside from getting them to fix up and clean up the stores, we need something that looks like, hey, this is what we want our town to look, and you need to do something about it. Now, not just the property owners, and not just the building owners, the building owners and the store owners, but the community, the city has to also help. Just like Mr. Milam invested a lot of money, city has to invest in the downtown, in the community. So definitely something more uniform, where this town really looks charming and quaint. And then the other thing, I know parking, we've been talking about it, that, and when Mr. Milam was talking about the downtown, the circle. I guess we will have to kind of focus on one central place to do this, because there's so many moving parts and then nothing gets ever done. I think the circle is a great idea about the parking, because it might resolve with that type of study, or resolve pedestrian problems, other things that come with such a mass plan, put parking in the downtown, in the circle. But I think also we have to kind of make that our central park. And it's not just for downtown Santa Claus on Christmas time, but make it enough where people really want to go there and spend time there after work. Whether it be, if we do the parking, kids playground, a little small plaza where just where interactions, people have some quiet space, beautify it. Yes, we have a gazebo, it's been there ages, but really make it a center place for our downtown to really have people come. And then I think from there, start feeding into the rest of the place. So that's my thoughts, and hopefully taking a little consideration for future action, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Thanks for being with us these last two meetings. Always appreciate your input. Any other public comment? All right, nobody online?
No, at the moment, we have nobody through Zoom wishing to speak.
All right, so we'll close the public comment for now and move into what is new business? And I'll just, for the purpose of the record, apologize. As we were assembling the agenda, you see that we're on a revision of a revision. So I'm going to work with our clerk's office to see that we get the input from each of you in a more focused manner and that I pay better attention. So apologies, especially to the captain and Mr. Mile, to Max, that we missed that the first round, but we got it revised and we'll do better with the next meeting. So thank you all for your patience and for going through a couple different agendas. But with that, we'll go back to new business. And really item A is kind of new, old business. I know some of you submitted some questions for the business survey. You heard from our good council member that there's also kind of a discussion about talking to residents in terms of what types of stores they want to see, what types of business, when they would patronize those. And I think our vice chair before talked about that at our last meeting, that we've got to make sure to pay attention to what the consumers want, our residents want. So I know a number of you submitted questions when you came in today at your seat. There were some additional questions. And so I think what we can do is, take a moment to look through those, but also give folks a little more time to submit any questions. Also taking into account for the residents as well. If we end up building kind of a couple different surveys in different modes. So I'll just open that up for additional comment. And I want to thank those of you that already submitted some great questions as well. I have some of those here actually. I think they were distributed as well. So
Yeah, you should have a copy of everything that was submitted to Myra. Printed out.
that one's like a handwritten one. I like this one because it turned our task force into the Fed task force. I never thought of that. Business and Economic Development Task Force. So we're anything but a sleepy group. Yes, Charlie. Turn that on so the folks can hear you. Lean over to Patrick's.
Just on the survey, I think that it's important to keep the survey short and sweet.
Agreed.
Just the essential questions that we need at this point to gather the important information, because if it becomes too long, then people are not going to want to complete a survey. So that's my.
I think that's great. I took one today, actually, the Beacon Council sent out. At the very beginning of it, it said this will only take you about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think when people see that, they're a lot more willing to take a survey if they know that they'll be done in 3 or 4 minutes. I'm a little slow, so it took about 10, but most people can do that.
I have to do 3 minutes.
There you go. And item B is related to this too. So let's also chat a little bit about format. Are we doing something that's purely online? Are we going to do something, maybe work with Nestor that we can get that distributed? We're doing some things in print. You see the mayor's letter here to new businesses. Is that another modality? What do people think in terms of, the best way to accomplish that and get a very robust return?
Do we as a city have everybody's email address, every business owner's email address?
Probably not.
Email address would be pretty tough. Most of our information is collected through the business license process,
Right.
where I would have to check with the building department and see if they collect email as well. But for the most part, it's usually physical address of your business and contact information like phone number. I would have to double check, but I can get that back to you with that information.
Please do. That's a great question. Obviously there's a uniform form when you sign up for your business license to pay for that on an annual basis. And hopefully that's one of the fields that we can, if we're not currently getting it, that we can maybe go to the county and get that as well. Not everybody's as comfortable filling out a survey, and so maybe there's like a backup plan that if you do the first round, and if you're not getting a good result, maybe it's something that we send. Then you require people to open it, fill it out, return it. That
How
takes a
about like
little
a
more time.
postcard?
Okay.
I think.
Going back to Charlie's point of it being kind of short and sweet, and they could drop it off
They don't
here
have to open it up.
at City Hall. That's great. Other thoughts? Thank you, Marie. It's great.
Can you guys hear me?
Give me 1 second. Hold on. We have board member Guerra who's going to speak. I'm going to try something different. So give me 1 second. Board member Guerra. Hold on.
It was a little, George, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Loud and clear. So when it comes to the survey, I think it's a great idea. When it comes to distribution, I think what we need to start looking at is creating a print and a social media campaign with a QR code where people can do it on their phone real quick. And you should consider giving some sort of prize or new business exposure to incentivize people to fill out the survey. Make it fun. And from a distribution perspective, there needs to be a campaign. Email, text, print, and social media. Any and every which way that you can distribute the QR code, I would make it available to the businesses out there. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, George. I think that's a great idea, providing an incentive as well, that if you fill it out and give us
Local.
Yeah, I think we have to look at a number of modes, especially if we're going to engage more with the residents, and get some feedback from them, which I think is essential to knowing, what they're looking for. And I'm thrilled that many of you invited folks to come tonight, not only for public comment to participate, because it means you're out having a conversation, you're talking, and you let folks know what you're doing, what we're doing, and what our goals are over the next few months as we prepare to deliver a report at the end of our year. Captain?
First of all, Mr. Chairman, I want to commend you for a comment you made. It's a true sign of a leader to admit that you had a little bit of a polish there with Max and that's something I went through training for 50 years to be able to admit to your fault. I apply this sometimes.
Well, I grew up with my mother, so
Thank you.
it's a lifelong journey of patience. Thank you, Captain.
And I want to thank everyone that I invited that showed up.
That's
I
awesome.
think that was nice of everybody. And Mr. Suarez, if I may say, I said the same thing to Mr. Alex Miranda last month. I don't know how you all get my ideas and you present them before I can do that. Alex did the exact same thing on one, and you came up with two of my ideas. But that's okay. I will repeat it again. Thank you, Mr. Suarez.
Very nice.
I was gonna just suggest also for potential distribution center, City Hall and maybe the post office for the
Okay.
printed survey.
Any other thoughts in terms of questions? I think what we can do is give folks maybe another week or so, because not everybody, I think, has turned some questions, and just based on the volume we have here, maybe give you all through next Friday if you want to add any additional questions. Then we'll redistribute that to everybody, give you a little holiday reading, and then we'll work through the clerk's office and through the manager's office to start putting kind of pen to paper, finding that good format. I love the postcard idea. I love the idea of us, leveraging folks who are sitting here on this task force and helping us on distribution, and really creating no excuse to not have filled it out. If you're not just comfortable doing it online, or as George said, some people like to do it right on their phone. Not everybody's as comfortable doing that, but if we come up with 3 or 4 different ways, then I think we'll capture as much data as possible. So I'm going to keep us moving. We do have a lot of items under new business, so I just want to be respectful because I know some folks have some time commitments. And I think the next 2 items are Mr. Milam's items. So Max, if you don't mind, I'll defer to you on items C and D, if that's all right.
And see, I really don't have anything to say. I was just a suggestion that I know when I left the other month and I walked down Westwood Drive at night, it just really hits what is here when you walk down Westwood Drive at night, how bad it is. And I just thought it might be a good idea for us to take a little stroll. And at night is when you really get back. That's really all I had to say about that.
Okay. So if folks don't have an objection, maybe we work that into, are you suggesting doing it in the evening? Like maybe shorten the front end of our meeting and then
I just think.
go for a walk, not necessarily at daytime, but folks can do that on their own as well. I like the idea of a group.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna get back to you guys on that because that may be a sunshine violation. We're supposed to have as meetings in Florida are open to the public.
Sure. So they're welcome to walk with us.
Yeah, we would have to have some kind of way of recording it that you make sure you guys don't discuss any questions. So maybe you go at different times, or maybe you
Let's just
see
suggest
some
that
talking
everybody
points
just
of,
take that walk.
yeah, maybe you guys, hey, I see this, check this out, but together as a group, we would have to do it in an open meeting where I'm recording and there's, public comment and open to the public.
I see you with like a
Sorry about
recorder strapped to you and following.
I don't know about that.
Sort of a rolling,
that one?
a rolling kind of group. Anybody can join us.
We'll wait for Myra to come
All right, well,
back.
we don't want to create any headaches for the clerk's office.
Thank you.
All right, so would folks be comfortable committing to do that? Maybe we'll have that as a discussion item in January on sort of your results, feedback, and what you saw.
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you very much. And then next item D on the central business parking review.
Yes, and Mayor, I appreciate what you said, and I'm not a resident of Miami Springs. I've been doing business here for 25 years. I come to work here every day for 18 hours a day. I feel like a resident. And this city is very, very important to me. Our corporate offices are here. We employ 25 people in our corporate office. And Miami Springs is near and dear to my heart. And I've come to these council chambers many times. But before I get started, all the task force members have some handouts up here, and I couldn't do a PowerPoint. I tried to email this to the city, but it kept bouncing back because I guess it was too big. So I made copies.
Beautiful.
Well, I just, if somebody wouldn't mind, just, there should be. And if you would, just hang on to it and we'll kind of go through it together. And the good news about this, the council can't tell me I'm limited to 3 minutes. But Mr. Chairman, I am going to please ask you to have patience with me tonight.
Please.
I will tell you, since our last meeting, I spent over 100 hours on this, preparing for this evening, because that's how important this is to me tonight. My comments this evening are at the core of supporting the businesses in the central business district and turning the page from decades of decay and failure in the CBD. Much of what I have to say involves a new town center development in the Gateway Overlay District that was passed in 2018. Not because I'm anti-development, I'm very pro-development. Let me make sure we're clear on that. But there were decisions made with respect to the Gateway Overlay District and the town center development that I believe created the perfect storm in making a bad situation much worse, with public parking already being grossly underserved in the CBD. Much of what I present tonight is going to be very objective because I don't like subjectivity, so I made it very objective. I did not attend, let me be clear, I did not attend any public hearings with respect to these matters. So my knowledge is limited to the minutes, audio recordings of public meetings, staff reports, studies that were done, and questions I've asked the city and consultants involved with these two items. But rest assured, I did my homework. I've been in these chambers many times to discuss the insufficiency of the city's parking to satisfy the needs of the businesses that operate in the CBD. The city has continuously failed to take the actions that would alleviate the parking problem. This is my last time. I've been doing this for 20 years, and this is it. We live in a time where consumers demand instant gratification. Businesses have had to adjust to this want it now type mentality. You can thank the likes of Amazon, Uber, Postmates, Instacart, and the list goes on for stoking the on-demand mentality that people have today. This on-demand mentality applies to parking as well. Time is precious to people. If anyone sitting here thinks a 35-year-old millennial is going to park their car in a public or a church parking lot 2 blocks away and walk to a restaurant, the Subway, or a UPS store on Westwood Drive, it's not going to happen. You just don't get it. What I'm talking about is more relevant today than it ever has been. As somebody said, we're trying to finish this remodel. We're spending millions of dollars. I said at our last task force meeting that I've been trying to do this remodeling for 5 years. I have 14 family members that are shareholders in our grocery stores. We have 5 stores in Miami-Dade. It took me 5 years to get approval for this because it's no secret among our shareholder group that parking is a problem in Miami Springs. Not that we don't have enough spaces. We have 67 spaces. But quite frankly, often our parking lot is used as a public parking lot. That's a reality. I was finally entrusted by all shareholders to make this investment with the expectation that would drive more business, more foot traffic to our store in the community. Yet I had to convince our shareholders I would overcome the parking issue. And I've got to do that. They're going to expect it. So I'll do what I have to do. That Exhibit A, that first picture, that's 2 weeks ago tonight. That was at 5:36 p.m. Our parking lot is full. People are looking for spots.
and we had 8 customers in the store. You don't have to be a mathematician to figure out that there's a parking problem in the central business district. I bring this up because I think the city continues to ignore there's a parking issue. I know I've heard others tonight, but I'm going back over 20 years. I want to take a second to indicate what the parking codes require in Midas Springs. I'm not going to get into great detail, but basically, if you got a multifamily unit, it's 2.25 spaces per unit. Doesn't matter if you're 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, that's what it is. If you're retail, it's either 1 space for 300 square feet or 1 space for 100 square feet. The more intense retail, such as restaurants like Yamos or Subway, that's 1 space for 100. The less intensive, like a bookstore or a salon, is 1 space for 300 square feet. Let me be clear, though, that all the existing buildings in the CBD, and when I say CBD, I'm talking about Central Business District, so excuse me for the acronym, but I'll make this short. Let me be clear, though, that all the existing buildings in the CBD are grandfathered as to parking, regardless of the intensity of use. That's something we've all inherited for a long time. In other words, you don't have to provide more parking than what's existing when using existing buildings. Grandfathering is allowed. That doesn't mean that existing parking in the CBD is adequate. That's a totally different question. Grandfathering of on-site parking in the CBDs does not apply to new development. If you tear down a building and build a new building, it doesn't apply. You got to meet the parking. This would have been the case with the new town center prior to the passage of the Gateway Overlay District. Grandfathering would not have applied, and that project would have been required to apply for a significant parking variance that would have been subjected to a Board of Adjustment at a public hearing and then approved by the council at a public meeting. But oh, what a difference an ordinance makes. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then, I hope I don't raise my voice over tonight, and it's not that I'm angry, it's my passion about this. The city council passed a resolution adopting this task force, and the purpose of it is to study, advise, and make recommendations to the city council with regard to marketing the city, attracting new businesses, and supporting existing businesses. And that's exactly what I'm here to do. I have the hope that this task force can finally get the city's leadership to listen and have the courage and fortitude to do something regarding the lack of parking. And when I'm done, I think you're going to believe it. I'm speaking on behalf of all the businesses that haven't made it. And there's been a lot. I've seen a lot come and go. And all the businesses that are here trying to make it. At our second task force meeting, I asked the city if they could provide an analysis with respect to all the businesses in the CBD, showing me 3 things. The amount of on-premises parking that each of those businesses has. In other words, their own spaces. 2, the amount of parking that would be required if that business met code. 3, the amount of off-premises public parking spaces in the CBD. In other words, the street and parking lot parking. When I came to the next meeting, and why did I want to know this? Because I've been hearing forever, we've got enough parking, we've got enough parking. I wanted to see objectively if the city had adequate parking, because I keep hearing it. I was looking forward to my next task force meeting so I could review this data, something I wanted to see for 20 years. So I read the minutes provided that meeting. To my surprise, there was no mention of my request for this analysis, nor was any such analysis from the city provided at that meeting. All I saw was this wording in the minutes, and I quote, City Manager Alonso and City Planner Hyde stated that the city does have adequate parking for the current businesses. And it says again, City Manager Alonso and City Planner Hyde stated that the city does have adequate parking for the current businesses. I wish you could just show me their analysis and how they determine adequate parking exists for current businesses without just making a statement to that effect. I should have objected to the minutes before, but I approved them. I was upset when I read that and I didn't get the analysis. I just held my breath and I approved the minutes and I just went on. I ignored it. I didn't want to take up any more time on that. I finally determined that if I ever wanted to see this, I'm just going to do it myself. So that's what I did. Make it clear I should not have to have done this. And that's my next exhibit. That's this big spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet. And what that sheet shows, I want to explain it. This is as objective as we can get. What that sheet shows is all the businesses in the CBD. It shows, of course, the addresses. It shows the square footage. A lot of this data I got off the Miami-Dade Property Assessment website. I got the square footage. I have its use, what it's used for, and then I applied what the parking spaces would be required for those. buildings based on the parking code, and then the parking that those facilities actually had on site. This has all been one to see for 20 years. So if you go to the bottom of the second page, it shows for all those businesses in the CBD, there should be 1,317 parking spaces if we met code. We actually have 494 on-premises parking spaces. But if you exclude those parking spaces that are particular to somebody that may have more parking, like the bank has more than they need, we shouldn't say we can use their parking, so I deduct those out. So it says in the CBD, without considering any street parking yet, forget that. It says in the CBD, we're short 850 parking spaces. Can't get more objective than that. Now, the next page shows the last page, all the public parking, the street parking and so forth. And if you deduct all those spaces out, it still shows after considering all the public parking spaces, we are still short 468 parking spaces. This blew my mind when I did it. And let me tell you, it could have been worse because when I walk the CBD, and I walk the CBD probably 5 times to double check and triple check my numbers. The CBD is pretty much encapsulated by multifamily residential units almost on all sides. And a lot of those multifamily units, guess what? They use those public parking spaces too. I left them out of this equation. And if I'd included them, it would have made the matter worse because they're using some of those spaces and you can't say they're not. So I'm not suggesting that the city needs to create 400 new parking spaces. Let me be clear on that. I am stating that the CBD is grossly underserved in parking. That's a fact. The CBD lacks the needed parking for businesses to succeed. That's a fact. I'm saying that any suggestion by the city that parking is adequate in the CBD is simply a false statement, and I hope no representative of the city ever says that again. Look at all the closed businesses and dilapidated buildings within the CBD. It's a shame that every other city in Miami-Dade is vibrant with activity and prospering with redevelopment, but we just can't seem to figure it out. And I'm telling you, it starts with parking. The city has turned a blind eye to this for 30 years and can't ignore it anymore. Leasing parking spaces at a church parking lot, again, is not the answer. If we think it is, we're not in touch with the problem. If you notice my analysis, I'm showing 147 parking space shortfall for the town center. That's the very top item on that first page. Take that out of the picture, and we're still short 300 parking spaces. No excess of surplus parking spaces were even present before the city approved the town center project, yet the city's assumption for that is they told the traffic engineer that they could use 47 spaces. The city assumed we had spaces to give away. We don't. We're already severely lacking. In 2018, the Miami Springs Council passed Ordinance 1107-2018. Now, I'm telling you, this is one of the things that probably made me the most mad, and I'm going to get to it in just a second, because it's a shame what happened here. Just a few more months later, the development group closing the purchase of the land where the town center is currently being developed at 1 Curtis Parkway. The most publicly debated item in that, I'm assuming, was the FAR ratio going from 1.0 to 1.7. Mayor, I'm assuming that was probably a big issue. But subject to the applicant meeting certain conditions, obviously. But there was something else, and this seemed to get lost in the weeds. I didn't even notice the first time I read it, but I noticed it the second time I read it. That's Exhibit C. Exhibit C, and when you see these things, you see red writing on there, that's my writing. Those are my notes. But the black, the section 150, this is the section dealing with parking in the overlay district. This is specifically the overlay district. Under the CBD, which the overlay district is a part of, if you demolish a building and build a new building, you must meet the off-street parking requirements of the code, unless you apply or are granted a variance for the city's Board of Adjustment. Let me say that again. Unless you are granted a variance with the city's Board of Adjustment at a public hearing that also must be approved by the council at a public meeting. I'm talking about before the overlay district. Now the overlay district is there. Okay, no problem, got it. And the new Gateway Overlay District, the on-premises parking code requirements for a new building, which they did, they tore down what was there and they built a new building, was thrown out the window. And the sole power and authority to determine the parking requirements was entrusted and placed in the hands of the city planner. His sole decision, his sole discretion, the city planner became judge and jury. I can't believe that. no variance for parking would ever be required based on what the city planner determined is needed. That means no need to consult with the city's board of adjustment, no public hearings, no public input. That's a shame. To recap, without the passage of the Gateway Overlay District by the council, the town center project would have required a parking variance ranging anywhere from 95 to 252 parking spaces. Approved by the Board of Adjustment in a public hearing that would require approval by the council also at a public meeting. I'll discuss how I came up with that variance in a few minutes. Of course, this didn't require a variance. That variance requirement simply disappeared with the council passing the Gateway Overlay District. It wasn't required. It would have been required, but it wasn't. Let me reiterate, without the passage of the Gateway Overlay District ordinance, this project would have needed, pursuant to the code, anywhere from 193, best case, to 350 parking spaces, worst case. If anybody, I have a sheet in there calculating the parking. I tried to get it from the city, I couldn't get it. I did it myself, it's not that complicated. You do have to make some assumptions, and that's why I say it's anywhere from, lost my spot there, 193 to 350 parking spaces. Oh, how many do we have? 98. That would result in a variance being sought by the applicant from 95 to 252 parking spaces. When the Town Center Development Project received final approval by the council in 2019, it was proclaimed variance-free. Variance-free by the former mayor sitting in these chambers. I listened to the audio tape. Call it what you may, while true, because of that overlay district, while true, that was disingenuous and it disenfranchised every person living in Miami Springs and every business owner doing business in Miami Springs. If there was ever an instance of pulling the wool over eyes of all the residents and business owners in Miami Springs, this was it. Had I known at the time that this project was so grossly underserved in parking, I've been here in these chambers. I would have received a public notice in the mail that a variance was being sought by the applicant. And they would have said what the variance was for, and I would have been here, because I said, you're crazy. You got a problem. I didn't get a mailing, because there was no variance being sought, because we pulled the wool over everybody's eyes. I don't think that council truly wanted that. In my heart, I can't believe the full council passed the Gateway Overlay District with the understanding of the power it gave to one person, the city planner, and how it disenfranchised the entire community. But let me tell you, that ordinance, the way it is written, was an injustice to every resident of Miami Springs. It stripped them of representation and voice by elimination of the variance requirement for parking, which is present for every other zoning district, but not the Gateway Overlay District. Making one person judge and jury just so the city could proclaim this variance-free and allow construction of a building grossly underserved with parking was wrong and an insult to every resident of Miami Springs. I don't think the Board of Adjustment or Zoning and Planning Board wanted that. I don't think the citizens wanted that, and I know the business owners didn't want that. But I don't think this wording in the Gateway Overlay in the Gateway Overlay ordinance was merely a coincidence. By having this wording, the city would never have to provide notice for any new building in the Gateway Overlay District to residents or businesses that an applicant was seeking a variance for parking, because that was negated by giving the city planner the right to determine how much parking is needed. You don't need a variance, as long as he says what it is. The ordinance even indicated that the council will assess fees. Many cities call these impact fees for the reduced or waived parking spaces that granted to the applicant. Why was that there? Well, because the thought is that projects like this will further burden the existing infrastructure and require the city to make upgrades for all the new public parking it now needs. Makes sense. Regarding such fees, the ordinance says, and I quote, "A fee shall be paid to the city for each such parking space." I say again, a fee shall be paid for each such parking space. It doesn't say could be paid. It shall be paid. I didn't see these fees discussed in the staff report. I didn't see it discussed in the council meeting minutes. Was this never brought up to the city by the city attorney or by staff to the zoning and planning board or the city council? The code doesn't suggest it, it requires it. I asked the city staff that question and they replied, the boards did not assess any fees for the project. That wasn't my question. My question was, did staff or the city attorney notify the council that they are required to by code to assess these fees for the reduced or waived parking spaces? If the council wasn't informed of this, they should be upset. I still haven't got to the main course yet, that's the traffic study. Let's talk about the town center, 98,000 square feet. 23,500 square feet of retail. That's 25% bigger than my grocery store. 51 multifamily units. 42 bedroom and 11 3-bedroom units. Only 98 parking spaces. Take all the commercial buildings in the central business district, from the circle down westward to Morningside, down Royal Poinciana to Dakota, all the businesses on the circle, on Canal Street and Hook Square, and add it all up, you come up to about 260,000 square feet. This one building is 98,000 square feet, or 38% of that total. I sent numerous emails to the city asking if they could provide me how they determine the amount of parking spaces required for this development pursuant to the code. It shouldn't be complicated. The answer is just simply applying the various aspects of the code and then taking the deductions that the new gateway overlay district allowed. I just wanted to see how the city got the number. After pushing for this answer, the city finally replied that the city accepted the report of the traffic engineer, Langen, that put the number of parking spaces required for the project at 151, which includes both on-premises, 98, and off-premises. So what you're telling me then is that the city planner didn't make this calculation, but instead deferred his calculation for the required parking to the traffic engineer that was hired by the developer to get the project approved to calculate the required parking for their project. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we still haven't gotten to the traffic study yet. The new gateway overlay district requires the city planner to determine required parking on a case-by-case basis. It does not say have a consultant that is hired by the applicant to come up with a number. So who is Langen? That's this exhibit F. This is the traffic engineer's report. The first page is all written by me. It's reasons why I think this traffic study is a joke. The second page is the definition of shared parking, which is very important. And then the third page is one page from the staff report, which is the site showing part of the parking garage. And then there's about another 10 pages where I wrote notes on, and you can read those at your pleasure. And I didn't include the whole traffic report because there would have been another. I only included the pages I wrote notes on. So who is Langen? Well, Langen's a traffic engineering consultant. They were hired and paid for by the developer, not the city, but the developer to get the developer's project approved. That's what the engineer told me. And you guys told me I wasn't going to say it, but he said generally they're the last one hired, even after the plans are done. Did anyone read the traffic parking study? It's not a trick question, it's a very serious question. I don't see how anyone that read it wouldn't be scratching their head like I was. I read the minutes of the council and didn't see any remarks that the traffic engineer made a presentation to the council or was asked questions. After I read the traffic parking study, I had lots of questions, so I called Langen to ask some questions about the report. It goes without saying that the city's hiring their own independent traffic engineer. If they're not hiring their own independent traffic engineer, then you better ask some good questions so you know what you're getting. So I spoke to a person at Langen by the name of John Kemp. I told him I was on the Miami Springs Business Development Task Force, and I told him what our purpose was. I asked him if I could discuss our conversations with people in this task force. He said absolutely. Mr. Kemp said his study provided for 94 on-premises parking spaces and 47 off-premises parking spaces. Down to item 1. Mr. Kemp said that in a mixed-use development like this, that it's very common that shared parking plays a critical element of this study. And what that basically means, and you can read the definition, it basically means the residents, while they're gone the day, that the customers and the employees of the retail establishment can use those spaces during the day. Right? That makes sense, right? But we got one big problem. I forgot to tell Mr. Kim that the 70 spaces in the parking garage are exclusive to the use of the tenants of the apartment. And they're gated. Did you hear me? They're gated and they're exclusive to the use of the apartments. So the most critical assumption of the study, shared parking, is not even present. That's a critical flaw and makes this entire study useless. There's a lot more. So if Langen's saying the number is 151, you already know it's way north of that because of that big flaw. Let's talk about that. The city staff report clearly states that those spaces, and it says in the staff report right there, exclusive use of the tenants of the apartment. And if you look at the drawing in there, you'll also circle the gate, you see the gated entry. Why didn't staff clarify this critical contradiction with the traffic consultant? That's a good question. They clearly contradict each other on the most critical assumptions. There's two more handouts also. One is G.1 and G.2. One is the zoning and planning meeting minutes and the staff report, preliminary staff report at that meeting, that zoning meeting on April 1st, 2019. And then the final one, G.2, is a council minutes and staff report dated April 22nd, 2019. So it's the entire set. I made a few notes in there. You can look at it if you want. So let's talk about the zoning and planning meeting. I understand that that board is only performing a site plan review. They're not doing any variances. They're just doing a site plan review. However, one P&Z member, and I give him a lot of credit, Mr. Madonna, let him know who he is. He brought up some good points. He indicated that the traffic study was based on shared parking, and that's the basis behind reducing the number of parking spaces required for the project. So what did he do? He suggested to staff that shared parking should be mandated. He suggested to staff that those spaces should be reserved for specific units. He suggested to staff requiring additional signage for shared parking. He suggested to staff working to limit overnight parking on street by residential units. None of Mr. Madonna's recommendations made it to the final staff report that was presented to the council on April 22nd, 2019. They were all ignored. Item 2, Mr. Kim said that most cities don't allow consultants to take credit or consider on-street parking because such spaces aren't reserved for that specific project. But he said Miami Springs allowed them to take credit for all the spaces adjacent to the building on Curtis and Canal. I then asked Mr. Kim a very important question. I asked him if this proposed project was looked at through a prism as if the project was the only thing there without considering other businesses that require parking within the trade area and whether such parking is sufficient or insufficient. Mr. Kim replied that in theory, this project assumes that it is the only building there, that those 47 parking street spaces can be attributed or reserved totally to this project, and such spaces will not be used by other businesses operating in the trade area. Another critical flaw. Next item. Mr. Kim said that the city should have requested an accumulation analysis. I asked him what that was. He said most cities do require it, but Miami Springs did not. An accumulation analysis would have taken into account other businesses operating in the trade area and the traffic generated and parking needed for those businesses and whether such existing parking was adequate or inadequate in relation to this project. He said the city didn't require this. He said it would have been helpful. Those were his words. Another critical flaw. Item 4. I can't believe this keeps going. I'm sorry, but this keeps going. Mr. Kim said the city allowed him to take a 20% credit. That's a reduction in parking for mass transit. 20%. That's 320 cars a day based on this traffic study. I've been doing business in Miami Springs for decades, and I rarely see people using mass transit. I asked 2 bus drivers in the last 3 days coming out of our store because they often come in and take a restroom break. I asked them how many people they just generally pick up a day. And both of them, one said 7, one said 8. And that's for all of Miami Springs. I don't know about anybody else sitting here, but I don't think for that one project, 320 people are using buses to get to that project per day. But he said Miami Springs allowed him to take that credit, so that's what he did. Because that reduces the amount of parking that's required. Mr. Kim was fully aware his study would have represented a reduction in required parking pursuant to the code. He said that's no surprise. I told him that the city used his report for purposes of determining the parking requirement for the project, and it did not require a variance. He was very surprised by that. He said that would be abnormal. There's a lot more I could discuss, but we simply don't have the time. I cut this thing down to 30 minutes. I was 45 minutes, and I said I could say a lot more, but I think you get my point. Everything I just mentioned about this traffic parking study was not my job, but every one of those items should have been considered and addressed by the city during the review of this project. After all that, all I can say is garbage in, garbage out. This traffic study for this mixed-use development is literally worthless. and yet the city used it as the sole basis to determine the required parking spaces for the project. The fact that the project was also approved with the assumption that the city currently has surplus parking already to give to this project was absurd. The city planner staff report recommending approval was provided to the council on April 22nd, 2019, and approved by the council by a 4-to-1 vote, with only Councilwoman Mitchell, Mayor Mitchell, voting against the resolution approving the project. I commend Mayor Mitchell for repeatedly questioning the parking during the meeting before she was abruptly interrupted with the motion to approve the project. I listened to the whole meeting by audio. I recognize some of the council members serving today were not present when this project was approved in 2019, yet they've inherited what is here, what is yet to come. Why the traffic engineer didn't make a presentation to the council is hard to understand. Maybe they did, but the minutes don't reflect that. Why the city didn't review the assumptions or call out the gross inadequacies or flaws in the traffic engineer's report, as I did this evening, is hard to understand. Why the city allowed a consultant hired by the developer that made critical flawed assumptions to determine the amount of required parking lacks common sense. There was only one winner in this traffic study, and it wasn't the city. It wasn't the residents. It wasn't the business owners. The sole winner was the developer. The developer allowed to grossly underserve its project with parking, and that's money in their pocket. They will build this project, do what it takes to lease it up, and then sell it and make a lot of money, all at the city's expense. That's the game that's played here. Anybody in here that deals with commercial real estate knows exactly what I'm talking about. The developer shifted the burden of the city to provide parking, yet the city didn't even charge the developer for shifting that burden of infrastructure to them. I hope based on what I present tonight, everyone recognizes we have a serious parking problem, and it's about to get much worse with the town center development. With respect to the town center, we can't turn back the clock. We can't undo or add conditions to the development order that the city issued to the applicant for this project. They tell the city to pounce off. What's done is done. With respect to the Gateway Overlay District ordinance, we need to fix it. So next time some people want to give away 150 public parking spaces we already don't have, at least the people will have a voice. And I'm mad that I didn't have a chance to have a voice because I didn't know. I'm mad about that. When it comes to the CBD and the direction of this task force, the lack of public parking in close proximity to the respective businesses needs to be at the top of our recommendation list, in my opinion. This problem requires immediate attention from the city's leadership. You don't have a year to figure this out. That project's coming and it's close, and it's already bad and it's about to get a lot worse. In closing, I'd like for the information tonight that I presented to be included and attached to the minutes. And I'll give the I'll give you a copy tonight. And I'd also like the minutes to reflect that Board Member Myron made an extensive presentation about the inadequacy of the public parking in the CBD, and that he challenged this task force to take immediate action and make recommendations to the city for creating additional public parking that is centrally located to those impacted businesses. I apologize for the length of time tonight. I'm glad I wasn't limited to 3 minutes. I appreciate you not poking me to tell me to hurry up. But I've been wanting to get that off my chest, and it's off my chest.
Thank you, Max. I don't know if there's any comment. We'll certainly make sure that this is entered into the record. And I appreciate the incredible amount of hours, I think you said it was more than 100 hours in terms of compilation, but going out and making those counts. And I think as you look at the spreadsheet, you don't have to put the numbers in red. They jump off the page. You see what some of the challenges are. And I think most of us who go to businesses, have owned businesses, understand how essential parking is to the ability for your business to be successful. And we all know that the habits of the consumer are ever evolving. But folks don't necessarily want to walk a block or two in the heat, in the rain, the typical things that happen when we live in paradise. So I encourage all of you to dig deeper into this, because I think this is a good conversation that lets us talk in the broader, bigger picture. Yes, sir. Mr. Leonard.
Max, very well presented, very enlightening. A lot of people were not aware. Very well presented, very enlightening. I'm sure a lot of people were not aware of some of the things that you pointed out. I certainly wasn't. But when you talk about immediate action, I think that that the city has had plenty of studies regarding parking on Westwood Drive and all that, and I would recommend that the city immediately start to look into a pilot program to see if they can turn Westwood Drive, at least the first 2 blocks, 1 lane each way, and whether it's the inside lane or the outside lane, and make that angle parking. And that's something that they should start to evaluate and consider immediately. Because like you said, before you know it, that building is done, you've clearly stated that there is no real parking available. Because it's true what you say. I know a lot of the people that live in the apartments park on the street, and they use up some of that off-street parking. So that's my comment regarding that, and, you know, immediate action, and maybe the city can start to look at, again, I know it costs money, but maybe through a pilot program, they can look at it inexpensively, and if it works, then they can plan ahead to make it permanent.
Mr. Chairman,
Captain,
answer to you, first of all, Mr. Max Marlowe, that was incredible. I was enlightened, I had no clue on these numbers, it was shocking to me. And Charlie, again, you guys are able to take my ideas and what the esteemed Mr. Manny Perez vision and I worked on is exactly what you recommended. And the next, I have 5 items, thanks to Mr. Chairman. The next 5, I think they are the next 5 items.
yes, without objection, we can move into those and
Move into-
run us through those. Now.
Yes.
We'll start with the first one, which is Canal Street
Yes.
beautification, item E under new business. Please go ahead.
And I'm sorry for taking up so much time, but I'm not going to take up as much time as my esteemed colleague, Mr. Nolan. But it was very, very informative to all of us. And Mr. Chairman, prior to my proceeding, I do not have a teleprompter, so I'm going to read as Mr. Marlon did from my notes. And with your permission, it's about 2 or 3 minutes. Hopefully it won't go over. Good evening, Mr. Chairman Trowbridge, fellow task members, City Manager Mr. William Alonso, Madam Mayor Maria Michelle, Mr. Bob Best, and Dr. Victor Vasquez, Ms. Vasquez, and my fellow residents of the beautiful city of Miami Springs. Before I embark into the agenda items, I would like to acknowledge each and every one of our council members and city managers' vast experiences, educational qualifications, and devotion to service that we are fortunate to have in our community. You all have the power to effect positive change in this historic aviation community of our beautiful city of Miami Springs, considering environmental impact and beautification that will affect many future generations to come. We all know this can only be achieved by looking out of our comfort zones, thinking big, bold, as visionaries, as Glenn Curtis did, and looking at examples of other cities around us that have accomplished this already. You, the council, have entrusted us to achieve that exact same success with this task force. Having said that, with your permission, I would like to borrow a precept of annual recurrent flight training that was pioneered by my past airline, United Airlines, 4.5 decades ago, named CRM, or Crew Resource Management. CRM focuses on interpersonal communication, leadership, and decision-making of crew members, management, and various employee groups. One of the precepts of CRM is, it's not who is right, it is what is right. The CRM system was created and established and is used by other industries as well worldwide very successfully. I can attest to the fact that it changed my way of processing information, thinking, and planning immensely. This entire city council and city manager can go into the history books by doing something for this unique city where others before them have failed. Past 3 to 5 term mayors that I have known personally from 4 to 2 decades ago tried to effect change but were voted out by their council members, and it's a shame. Many workshops and 3 costly studies to the tune of $282,547,000 of taxpayer money was spent in the past 2 decades. That's over $250,000 taxpayers' money of the Miami Springs residents. Those studies foresaw the problems and issues that are present to this day, but have now been amplified with time as nothing was done at all. And what Max just said, I had no idea, and now he proved it. I sincerely hope that this time our ideas, plans, and suggestions are taken seriously, unlike 25 years ago, when I was at the airport and Miami Springs Chamber of Commerce group, which there are some people here present that was with me on that group, of businessmen and residents, meetings held at the golf course, and at 3 subsequent research project meetings in the past 2 decades, which seem to have not come to fruition at all. Now, in following with the agenda, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I would like to ask my wife to hand out some plans that the esteemed certified architect, Mr. Perez, was very kind to do as a volunteer project for us. And thank you for that. And I will continue the first agenda item while she's handing those out. Thank you. I would like to ask the Board of Directors to kindly consider to thank, and the mayor did this the other day at the council meeting, which I think is a wonderful, brilliant idea, to commend all the City of Miami Springs Public Works employees in writing for doing a tremendously good job for many decades whenever given any task. The new supervisor, Mr. Lazaro, has taken over from Tom, and they do a spectacular job, as we can see right now on Westwood Drive and at the Circle. I humbly request us to discuss that we reach a consensus to request the city to cities and the public works to increase the cleaning frequency, spruce up the grassy area in the riverbanks of Canal Street with pleasant eye-catching flower beds, possibly trees, and also add, maybe if the budget permits, 2 Native American built / thatched tiki huts in front of the smoke shop and Crackers restaurant to enhance foot traffic. And this is a suggestion for all public parking areas around the downtown area, and the sidewalks of our areas to be kept free of leaves, cleaned up on a more increased frequency, similar to other cities around Miami-Dade County. As the mayor alluded to, these few changes can be implemented as soon as practicable. That's the area of the Canal Street. Do you want me to proceed to the next?
Yes, go ahead and move on to item F. Unless anybody has any questions, I think you have some of the documentation here to look at, so I'll actually refer to that. Go ahead, Kathy.
I would like to commend and thank Mr. Manny Perez, as I did before, his wife and his entire staff for volunteering to produce these conceptual plans with environmentally friendly, pervious concrete or bricks. In case you don't know, I didn't initially, what a pervious concrete or bricks is initially used in Europe in the 1800s, believe it or not, then made popular comeback in Scotland and the United Kingdom in the 1920s, and it only became popular in the United States of America in the 1970s. If you can look at those plans that Mr. Perez beautifully created, there are 2 sets there. The first set is parking slots of 52 diagonally parked, as more than one person has recommended here. I did steal some of these ideas, in all honesty, from the Dover Call report when councilman at the time, Richard Wheeler was councilman and subsequently three-term mayor. And unfortunately, it didn't come to fruition, as I mentioned before. But this is a one lane for the first two blocks where we have increased the walkway. I refer to them as walkways rather than sidewalks because we have expanded. Mr. Torres and I on a Sunday morning took a tape measure, stopped traffic and measured this. And it's very feasible because actually the two lanes right now are so wide that we can actually have more than the required amount that is required by the code to have a larger one-way driveway eastbound and westbound out of the circle. And we have also, he did, we talked about it, and he has included the every single tree that is existing today will remain. Mr. Alonso, you mentioned something about that not too long ago, and we are going to keep all the trees that are there. The intention is to add more trees. And as far as the walkway that is going to be wider, as Mr. Perez has indicated, we can either use planters or trees or more like Burritoville the other day I walked by and he has got some plants there and that's very beautiful. And the idea of putting trees is to create a canopy like we did have over Point Siena for many years if we had to take those trees down because of age. This should create a lot of shade. This should also invite people to come in and walk in the evenings and spend time. And the other day, we were quite happy to see on the tree lighting when Mr. Best and Dr. Vasquez lit the tree. We missed the 6 o'clock hour, but we got there a little later. And we saw droves of people coming. Now, if that is capable, as I think somebody else mentioned during Christmas and other occasions, why can't we entice the people to come here? I'm 70 years old and I've talked to my children and my grandchildren and my nieces and nephews, and I'm thinking forward for their generation. And this is a long time in the making. All the reports, I have poured over them. I don't know if I spent 100 hours, but since last month, I have all the reports. Thank you to Mr. Councilman Best. He had Myra send us more documents. I poured over all of this and I saw that yes, they were old documents, but those people foresaw what was going to happen as I indicated before. And it's becoming really bad as he indicated. So I urge everyone, you have the power and the foresight to do something. As Max said last month, let's do something. Otherwise, all of us are wasting our time. Look at the time now. These people worked all day. At least I'm retired. And Max is not retired either. He's older than me. And Bob is retired, but he's 1 year younger than me.
1 year.
1 year. You're 69, sir, I know. But anyway, I mean, I'm trying to make light of this because it's a long evening. But this is fantastic what he and I made another suggestion. I had no clue what he was going to come up with. And the second suggestion on the second page is the identical thing. And these are just conceptual. The council and the city, I know the city might work with their own engineers and everyone else. These are just ideas that I had and I stole from some of the other reports and also Hollywood Boulevard. I've been going to Hollywood Boulevard for years because I worked for the FAA in Fort Lauderdale. I stopped there for drinks and snacks. And then I would see this and I said, why doesn't Miami Springs do this? And then I read the Dover report and said, wow, they copied the same concept. I've been to Europe, all over the world, and I see these beautiful cities, small hometowns, and I envision this. I did mention this to, I shouldn't mention names, but Mayor Jack Hughes was 27 years old and I was 24. We are 7 years apart or 6 years apart. And I asked him, why can't the city of Miami Springs be like Europe and do cobble streets? You know what he said? No way, my friend. It's too expensive. I said, but we can raise money, can't we? Talking about money, I have a solution for all of this. And I want to thank the mayor and the council again. I'm jumping a little step ahead on the call on the money. But it came to my mind, I'm ad-libbing now. I want to thank the mayor and the council for finally, the Dover Code Repair in 2001 said that the city needed a grant writer. It took 20 years for this council to do it. Now we've hired somebody, they financed it, and it's going to happen in January. Guess what I did? Spent 3 hours on the computer. I'm retired, right? So I go in there and I say, how many grants are available? Oh my God, I couldn't believe the number of grants out there. Federal, state, local, and businesses, companies, corporations want to help cities like us. Please, Madam Mayor, please entrust this grant writer and Mr. Manager, Alonso, ask her or him, whoever this person is, to dedicate and find, and I'll come free of charge and work with the city on the grant writer. I'll get you all these availabilities that they may not find, because I'm like him. I'm passionate. I've lived here for 52 years. I want to see the city before I die, do something. It's been so many times we've been trying. I've talked to other mayors. I talked to Richard Wheeler, Jack, these people tried and they were voted against. But Mayor Michelle, please don't let others know. I've already talked to all of you, including the one mayor, councilman I didn't know. And we've been talking today and he's on board. So please, I'm trying to get the council, because you all have the power. I know the city manager Alonso is concerned and wants to do something. But there may be some people who are blocking, but please work on it, please. And that's the end of the Westward thing. Oh, I didn't finish, sorry. So for 52 parking slots, here's a suggestion. Now people are going to talk about this, but please drive on Hollywood Boulevard, please. Not every block has a turn when you want to cross across. So Cross Street is right here. I'm sorry, Cross Street is over there. So when you pass his restaurant, the first thing is SunTrust Bank and BB&T Cross Street. The second plan is that you can make a right on Cross Street. Coming from Curtis Parkway, you can make a right onto Westwood Drive off of Cross Street. But the second plan blocks it. It takes the median all the way through to Park Street. Do you know how many parking slots that increases it to? 75. That is a conceptual design that Manny did. So now we got 75 parking slots, and he has done a beautiful job of creating marvelous pedestrian crossings where people can go very safely. And I also recommended, and it will be ADA approved by Miami-Dade, to put larger speed bumps so that the cars don't jerk all the time. But the reason is a lot of people who leave the circle, even in the daytime, they think they're on the Indy 500 and they take off. So if you have these speed bumps, which I copied again from Hollywood Boulevard, in that area where there are restaurants and businesses, we can calm. The whole idea is calm the traffic. Mr. Suarez suggested to me on a phone call, and he just talked about it, about Curtis. The city did a brilliant job to help the restaurant there and the pizza place, by putting that chain. That's something to entertain and see. I know that Curtis may not work as well because of the traffic, but I believe most of the traffic is going from Northwest 36th Street at the circle. I haven't seen the traffic flow, and that's a study the city can do, because I know Miami-Dade does that all the time. They put these rubber things that they check how many cars are going. But maybe that's something we can look at, because we talked about another project that I believe Max brought up about the area of Curtis Parkway, and where the memorial is, the Veterans Memorial. But I think there was some resistance to that. So these are some alternatives that Mr. Suarez suggested. So there are a lot of areas we can look at. And we have a great gentleman here. He's been here as long as I have. He's amazing. He knows what he's doing. He's actually doing the memorial. By the way, talking about the memorial, I'm going to market this a little bit. Both Mr. Bob West and Dr. Vasquez behind this project. And if there are any business owners here who would like to put a little thing in their restaurants or your store, sir, to help this thing, I would like to request that you all speak up and help them to do the Veterans Memorial so they can raise some funds on the citizens of Miami Springs. Anyway, that's covers restaurants, so I covered. I'm sorry about the ethic now. Any suggestions, comments? Mr. Manny Perez, would you like to add anything to something I might have left out, please, sir?
Well, there's really not a lot to add, as you mentioned. The same thought has been expressed over more than once. And down in Doral, they have another grocery store. I never go there, but I've heard they have also angle parking, similar to what we're proposing on the website. So you can actually see it and you can increase the amount of trees and planting, so it can be very pleasant. Right now, the median is not huge, so it's not like we're giving up anything in return. And with all the cuts now on the sidewalk into the business and so on, that would not be necessary. It would be necessary, but it would not be hampered by parking. Parking would not be. So it is worthwhile, and so many have mentioned before, something that should be looked at and incorporated, done, as Max said, to do it.
This is very impressive. Did you do this or your wife Clara did this?
Yes.
Max, you're so bad.
You see,
Combined
effort, Max.
No, this is very impressive.
Now, the trees we surveyed on our own, so they are approximately in those locations. We were not a boundary survey or formal survey, that was not. But the numbers is right, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Manny, one
Thank you
second,
for
I'm
being-
sorry. I know that we all know you in the room, but just for the record, can you say your name and your
Yeah,
business?
Manny Perez, 1056 Hunting Lodge Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Captain, back to you.
Well, I don't want to take up more time. Agenda item, let's see.
Are you on G?
Or 5G,
On Curtis Parkway?
Yeah, you're talking, yeah, that was basically it, because I know that other idea last time, people were not too enthusiastic about it. I still think it's a viable idea. And I left one more thing, I'm sorry. I want to try to reach out to Mr. Elon Musk. I don't know him personally, but I will try to reach out to their organization and try to get free chargers. And we have an esteemed gentleman here who believes in electric cars, and he works for a car company that works with electric cars, and I'm hoping that he can get charger stations for all these new slots we're getting. And FPL too. So we can try.
Well, apparently you only have to send him a tweet.
Yes, that's true.
Do you have a Twitter account?
I do. I don't use it, but.
Well, now's the time. How may we help?
Anytime, okay, so.
I know you talked a little bit about the funding sources. I'm glad you eliminated that on the
Yeah,
plan for
I
our
got
grant writer. Would you want to talk a little bit about creating code that supports business? I think that's a very
That's a
important
very
element, and I
important
think
element, yes.
if you go back even to the mayor's note and her earlier comments, you know, the paperwork that's being circulated, very helpful reminding businesses to be good business neighbors.
Yes.
And code is number one on that list, respecting the code, knowing the code.
And thank you for letting me speak again. I'm sorry if I'm hogging too much time from everybody, but these are important issues. Yeah, like others have indicated, it's very a passionate issue because I have known two personal business people in the past 20 years. I mentioned this a couple of meetings ago, who came to me and said, why is the city not working with us? And as far as the code. And they ended up going to our neighbors in Virginia Gardens. And I think we are not in a position to give up business. So I want to come with suggestion to the council that's revising these codes to relax the codes to be fair on existing businesses as well as on new businesses. As other cities have done, this is nothing new. As the mayor alluded to, this city is almost 100 years old. We got code here that was created during the antiquated times. We are now in the 21st century. So my first recommendation is the sign is an excellent thing. The other thing is the code, the colors. I bring this up because please don't go to Winwood. Let's go to Dora. Please go online and look at countries around the world. That's all of us have to do. The power of the internet is amazing. I was lucky, I flew there. But you all don't have to fly there if you haven't been recently. Please go online and look at this and look at small, quaint cities around the planet today. And you will all see such beautiful color palettes on these buildings and businesses. Amsterdam, Holland, my wife and we were just absolutely amazed. It is so beautiful. We could generate, the world would want to come here. I'm not saying make this a huge, humongous city. I'm just saying what we have, make it modern, make it nice, make it inviting. I guarantee you, in my humble opinion, our younger generation, and when I say younger, I'm talking people under 50 because I'm 20 years older. I'm talking in this 18 to 50. Those are the folks that are going to Winwood and Doral and you name it, wherever. We can get them here. And when we build it, they will come. When we build it, our young generation will come. I'm convinced that I've seen it in other cities. It's enough talking, enough studies. And all due respect to you, Melanie, workshops are great, but we've done enough. Where these certain things are able to be done, let's start moving. You're starting to, I commend, I really do. This is the only time I feel that something's going to happen in this city. And hopefully before I die, I see something happen.
Thank you, Mihal. That was a great presentation, and thank you for the documents that you shared with us. But item H, I'd like to hold on to and carry that over because I think all of us can also, doing some of the research or places that we've been, looking for innovative ways. I think Jennifer said very early on, looking at innovation and creativity and the use of technology. Let's put that to use. All of us go and visit places. We're doing that more and more. But if you see things that may make sense, some of them are just down the road. Manny just said you only have to go one city over and see some of the parking opportunities. You talked a little bit about the city of Hollywood. So let's put a pin in H and carry that over as an old business item. So without objection, we'll keep moving. I know it's been a long night for folks, but I want to really thank both Mihal and Max for the yeoman's work of enlightening not only our committee, but obviously the folks that are listening tonight, and we'll see the transcript of this meeting. Under old business, there's a discussion on the small business incentive programs. If you all don't mind, Mr. Finney isn't here tonight. He was kind of helping shepherd us with that, and so we can just defer that item. And I only wanted to mention about Small Business Saturday, that was a program that took place this last Saturday. It's the 12th year of that program that American Express does, and I can't think of a better community to really put their arms around a program like that than Miami Springs. There's an opportunity to really celebrate businesses. I think about George's wife. I mean, that's a perfect kind of business that is really quintessentially small business. And the whole movement is really about shopping local, supporting local, taking care of the folks who are your neighbors and friends, and supporting those independent businesses. So if you've never participated, we've got a whole year to plan. Because it's always the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And it's kind of the antidote to Black Friday and Cyber Monday. But this year, 60% of people said, I'm going to make a concerted effort to shop local. And that really does a lot to help businesses that are represented here on this dais and that are listening in the audience and are listening online. So that's my only soapbox moment. Item 7 is a preparation of the agenda for the next meeting. And then I think the clerk's office, or maybe Mr. Manager, asked us to have a discussion on bi-monthly meetings. I'm not sure exactly where that came from, but
No, that was just it's up to the board. Want to see if the 1 month meeting, one meeting a month is working for y'all. If you guys want to shift to a 2 month bi-monthly, so that you have more time to plan, prepare, put together any ideas. I see you have already 2 items on your old business. You're gonna have 2 more after this.
correct.
So in an effort of efficiency, I don't know if that's something that you guys want to look at. If you're okay with doing 1 month, that's fine. I just want to streamline this process for you.
I appreciate that. I think given that we have a deliverable within a 1 year time frame, that meeting on a monthly basis is probably appropriate, but if anybody has a different point of view, feel free to.
I'm moving once a month because I would like to see bi-weekly, but then like I said. but
Hourly.
I mean, there's a lot of work. This is just,
I agree.
concentrating on
So look at the work you all did
You got all-
last month, it's pretty
You got all
impressive.
of 36th Street still to do.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's a monumental.
So I don't think we need a motion, I think it was just a suggestion, but I think we'll leave it as is. I
Yeah,
don't see any objection.
that's totally fine. If a consensus that to me monthly remaining is totally fine. My next kind of point was, I know that for this agenda, everybody sent in some ideas and comments. I think to again streamline the process, the best way to do it is kind of, so far I have these 3 items that were asked to be on the next agenda to discuss as a consensus what you guys want to speak on coming up. If there's an idea or 2 that would like to be added, I think it's better than sending a bunch to the chair, and I think it's going to help you move along these items and ideas and really address them instead of trying to address everything at once.
Sure.
I'd like to say something about the additional measures, something I've been thinking about, that we're meeting once a month, 12 months in a year. Those meetings, and 2 hours, perhaps 24 hours. We have enough time, 24 hours to come up with, ideas, plan, I doubt it. I'll be very open to come on a bi-monthly basis, basically, and discuss what needs to be done for the city. And going back to the issue of parking, thank you very much, everybody, about the presentation, what we do. And I think what we have to do is benefits the residents and businesses here, because what I see the city is, the city of people commuting here. We're mostly concerned about the circle, the Curtis Park, with the westward traffic. Well, what are the commuters doing for our city? They just commute. They don't stop here. They don't shop. They just aggravate the traffic that we have in the city. I'm very open to bring ideas about reducing lines on Westwood Drive, on Curtis Parkway, even go all the way to maybe creating some parking around the circle. I don't care about the commuters. I clearly don't care. They speed up. They bring pollution. They bring issues. They don't bring any business. They don't bring any benefits here. I'd like to see some ideas, maybe ideas of perpendicular parking around the circle. We're gonna need to find parking spaces. One way or another, we're gonna have to find parking spaces. I don't know how we're gonna have to bend the rules or how we're going to create that. But clearly the solution is to make more parking spaces. And again, I don't care about the commuters. I care about the residents. I care about the businesses here. I want to attract more businesses. And if we want to attract more businesses, then I have to have more parking spaces. So I think, again, I'm open to come back, twice a month. I think we need more time. We need to talk more. We need to bring more ideas. I really enjoy, listening to all the presentation and everything. I think we're gonna have to turn things around in this city. Because, for the past 20 or 40 years, the business has been the same. Not change anything. It's so easy. Let's move on. Let's order a coffee machine. Let's do this. Let's do that. But there's nothing being done about, making beautification of the city and bringing more businesses. Benefiting the residents. So I'm open to come twice a month.
Okay.
I'm open to it, but I cannot speak for all you businessmen and the younger people who have children. I went through that. So I'm not gonna say anything. It's up to you. I will not second the motion.
I'm very busy also. I have to travel for business. I'm not gonna guarantee I'm gonna be here all the time, but I think the whole group or how many people can make it would be beneficial. Basically, I don't see how we can make it in 24 hours.
I agree.
Yeah, right. I totally agree with that. We want to get anything done, we have to meet more often. And I would like to ask another item to the agenda. A lot of things that we are proposing, but there's no money for it. I know we can do things on phases, but I want to look into the idea of having our own token, looking into blockchain technology and having the whole community raise funds and see how we can get that done in this city the same way it's been done in other cities.
Isn't Miami-Dade.com doing that? Is the Mayor Suarez doing that?
Yes, they did it already, and it's a
Excellent.
possibility we can do that here as well.
We'll add that to the agenda for the next discussion. That'll be under new business. So going back to your comment, what I'd like to do is let people kind of mull that over, and we'll revisit that in January. Obviously, it won't affect the December timeframe, but let's put it on the agenda to discuss it. Because when I saw bi-monthly, I saw every other month. You're talking about semi-monthly.
Yeah, every 2 weeks.
Twice a month.
So why don't you folks think about that, and we can have that discussion in early January. I appreciate that. Councilman, you wanted to have a final word. I see you halfway out of your seat.
Mark Rich, Mr. Chair, I should.
What a night. Some of the stuff that we've heard here tonight has been absolutely, in my book, incredible. I stayed here and watched every minute of it, every word. Max Milam, very passionate, and absolutely correct. I have your study. I promise I'll read it later. I couldn't read it all tonight, but I will read it word for word. You know,
Yes, sir.
you were extra passionate in
Well,
terms of thinking. No,
I
no.
had to- I saw him.
In
and
terms,
I said,
in terms
I
of
can-
in terms of thinking out of the box and all the things. Esther, some of the things you said tonight really caught my mind. This was a great meeting. I wish we had council meetings as good as this, Mayor. You guys are incredible, and I'm so happy to be here tonight, Chair Trowbridge, and I appreciate it very much. One thing that I did note tonight in listening to all of this rendering, well, first off, my 3 questions were not answered that I submitted. I guess that'll be in January. Chris Hyde, who's a city planner, is not here tonight. And I kind of empathize with him in a way relative to the possibility of his defense in some of these things that were said tonight. Because I was party to some of this too, Max, as you were aware. And I think given the circumstances we were given at the time, we did the best possible thing we could do relative to taxpayer money going forward. Sometimes we're not able to do that because the money isn't there to accomplish it. And what we can do is the best we can with what's put in front of us. You know, it's a moving target. You know, you've been here 25 years. You're absolutely right. Your store has. And most everybody in this town loves your store. And I empathize with you for the fact that what you pay for is taken advantage of. And I've told you that privately, as you were aware. And I think that in some small way, we need to figure out a way to fix that. And I know, Mark, you just talked about that. Others have talked about it tonight as well, about the parking problem. It is a problem. It's not insurmountable. We can fix this. But we have to figure out a way to develop the funding. Make it work from there. I think all of us on the council, I can speak for myself, certainly the mayor, I'm certain, and others, that we want the best for Miami Springs. And we've always striven for that, strove for that, I should say. And sometimes the circumstances aren't available for us to accomplish it as residents want. And for that, I suppose I must apologize. But we do strive for it always to try to do the right thing. And again, I hope in January, Mr. Manager, you would have Chris come and be here for this, because I think it would be interesting to hear the entire board relative to what he has to say. Very intelligent guy. He doesn't do silly things.
some of the stuff that was suggested perhaps earlier, needs to refrain. So, I just bring that up out of respect for Chris. Mr. Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very
I
much.
thank each and every one of
We'll
you.
get back to you on your 3 questions.
My 3 questions, yes. Thank you, sir.
If I, yeah, if I could respond, I certainly don't want anything that I said tonight to be accusatory toward anybody.
Not going there.
I like
I would
Chris a
never do
lot.
that to you.
I like Chris a lot, but I tell you what, that whole thing didn't pass the smell test, that's all I can say.
I got you.
Anything else for the good of the order? And I want to make sure, I don't know if Mr. Guerra is still on with us, but I want to make sure he doesn't feel excluded as he has participated in our meetings. Always a little harder when you're virtual. Madam Vice Chair, Sean Mark, Charlie. Max.
I just wanna, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, go ahead.
I just want
Ladies first.
again, thank you all. I can tell you, we asked for this task force because we want to hear this. This is, we obviously, we know something has to be done, and your comments, even if they're painful, like I said, they're welcome. We want to hear it. We want to move forward. I do just want to put the bug in your ear that we spent a lot of time on the central business district, and that in reality, the purview of this task force is business development for all of Miami Springs. So I'd like to ask, moving forward, that you also remember to include our Northwest 36th Street corridor and the Abraham track. Those are opportunities that, for the life of me, I do not understand why, in the location that we have, the accessibility to 826 Expressway, 112, which connects to I-95, you go down Lejeune, you're on the 836, why we aren't a more desirable business location for that corridor, the Northwest 36th Street corridor and the Abraham track. Attracting businesses to that area would substantially alleviate the tax burden on our residents. As you know, we have one of the highest millage rates in the county. So I'd just like to respectfully ask that you look at those areas too. Thank you so much, and happy holidays to all of you. I cannot thank you with Thanksgiving and with the holidays coming up, how grateful we really, really are for all of your time here. I know it's not just sitting here. This is a great deal of time sitting here, but it's all the time that you put in preparing for these meetings. So thank you.
I'm just gonna say one more thing, Mayor. When I drive across that bridge every morning at 5:45 a.m., it always gives me a big smile on my face to see those holiday lights.
Oh, yes, the Christmas tree lighting, yes, it's beautiful.
All right, anything else for the good of the order?
Just through the chair, I want to thank the mayor and the council and the city manager for getting us on our first day. That anything we've said here, whether it be something that might be upsetting or something that is not liked, that it's not going to be a problem for any of us to speak out and say anything. For that, I want to thank you all for accepting the fact that the only way we can communicate is to be totally honest. And that's the only way you all can know what's happening. And I know that Max mentioned a lot of things, and I kind of, but he had to mention what happened, because if he doesn't talk about it, you all won't know. And I just want to, on his behalf, he's on my colleagues that I've known him for a long time, that there won't be anything, because he's in the middle of construction, and I'm just saying, I'm not saying anything happened, but I don't, because he owes a debt of gratitude to his 14 board members for all his children and his nieces and nephews. He's going to be in big kinship.
I know.
If
No,
the
he said
store
that.
doesn't succeed with the millions he convinced them to spend.
He said that a couple of times in board meetings.
I know. I wanted to reiterate that I want, please, that all these projects will go on very smoothly. The manager can hear that, and the mayor is here, and that all the code compliance and everybody will just of course, I don't want them to do anything out of the wrong, but if it meets all the code, and I've done construction all over Miami Springs for years, so I know that if you meet the code and you get approval by Mr. Ulysses, he will do everything right. So thanks. I just wanted to say that because it's a wonderful.
Jennifer, one final comment before we adjourn.
Yes, actually, I do. For those of you who don't know my day job, I'm in technology. And I would just ask that as we're looking for the future of Miami Springs, that we leverage technology. We must be looking at a city that is smart and capable and planning for the future that our children will live in. I know I've heard that several times this evening, but, and I've heard a few things thrown out of you on Musk. Our company deals with Musk and several others in that space. But we must think to the future, and that is beyond just our normal street businesses. With respect to our history, and I make this comment that we have wonderful architecture that is nowhere else. We are the historical society. When we look through all of the things that in the collection of materials that we have, we see great styles of this architecture that we have out there from Pueblo mission style. But we also see great, what would we call it? No. The Nouveau architecture on Westwood Drive, some of the more Miami Beach type architecture. We can respect our various architectures here and build something beautiful and unique, keeping in mind the traditions that we have. And the circle, just for everyone's benefit, when Glenn Curtis designed the circle, that was for entertainment. We had jazz and music, and I wasn't here because I was just a conception in God's eye, I think. but I do believe that, that was a great unification point. So consider respecting those avenues and being able to, bring them forward so that we can come together as people, because that's what we do. We're a community, and we know that most people today spend a lot of time indoors and online and doing their thing. They want instant gratification and want to park definitely in Max's parking lot, which is not fair. But we know that we have to come together as a community and engage everyone in order to build a strong community and build strong places where people want to do business. So let's think outside the box as a group. Look at education, look at technology, look at healthcare, professional services, and other things that can bring people here to spend their dollars and their time and come together and be strong and rise up. And that's what I have to say.
Thank you very much. That's a great place to end. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Great. Is there a second? All in favor?
Yeah.
I see no opposition. We stand adjourned. We'll see you all in January. Happy holidays. Be safe.
Don't forget the gal.
See you soon.
I like your shirt. Thank you. Felicidades. Gracias.